You know, it's weird. I've only lived in two places my entire life, Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles.
A lot of people are increasingly not feeling safe because they live in neighborhoods that aren't safe.
You know, guns don't make me feel any safer. I've never held a gun in my life.
Let's get into something a little less controversial. Poker.
But a gambling problem, particularly if it's like online poker or sports betting, is very easy to hide. I was a professional comedian. I had no jokes. I was such a bad comedian, I would close with an impersonation of a Siberian husky.
Thank God you found success as a poker commentator. Hi, I'm Michael Pierce, and this is Lock, Load, and Listen. This is our guest, Norman Chad, poker commentator extraordinaire, sometimes poker player, an all-around interesting guy. Norman, how are you today?
I've been better.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Was it another wife?
The current wife is the last wife. Till death do us part. Even if that means a homicide, we'll be together.
Those were in the vows, till death do us part?
They weren't in the vows, but it's understood.
Yes, when I got married, my wife forbid those in the vows. I wanted them. I wanted, until death do us part. She said, no, I'm not saying that. Don't even ask me.
Oh, that was
that's my second one.
Literally request by her?
Yes.
Okay, well, she rules.
I guess so. So, Norman, everyone moves to LA for a reason, and everyone has a backstory, and I'm always fascinated by this. I know you're not from here. I'm not from here, and I've known you a considerable amount of time, and I've never actually asked you why you moved to LA, why you stayed, because we've all had our tribulations of LA. What is your story, man? Why did you come?
You know, it's weird. I've only lived in two places my entire life, Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. Two places that have nothing to do with the rest of the country. They're such oddities. And it's almost perfect now. The first 33 years, almost 34 years, I lived in Washington, D.C. And now the last 33 years, I've lived in Los Angeles. I came here, 1992 or 1993. I was a sports writer. Always have been a sports writer. Kept doing sports writing after I did the poker. I left a job to go work for Sports Illustrated, signed a 1-year contract with them to write a column in the front of their magazine. And since I could live anywhere I could want to live writing for Sports Illustrated, I decided to move to LA because I wanted to try to write, I wanted to try to do television sitcoms. That was my dream. So.
Thank you. So that's what I was drilling into. So similarly, I moved here to be in the entertainment business. That was the only reason. So I knew you had to have some entertainment aspiration. So how did that go?
You know, it didn't go well. In fact, first of all, I thought I'd give myself 2 years, maybe 3, and then I'm going to get out of town. Los Angeles was not my first choice where to live.
Yeah.
In fact, I had 3 job choices at that time. I could have gone back to the Washington Post, which where I worked most of my life as a sports writer. There was a new position. There's something called the International Herald Tribune, which was a paper owned by the Washington Post and the New York Times that distributes mostly in Europe. I could have become their first sports columnist. They offered me a job to become their first sports columnist and move to Paris.
Wow.
Or I could take the Sports Illustrated job. I made the wrong choice. I didn't choose Los Angeles over Paris. I chose, this is the window where I might as well try to get into the TV business, the sitcom business. If I don't do it now, I won't do it.
Yeah.
So I went to Los Angeles instead of Paris. Big mistake. But yeah, I did not do well in the sitcom business, could never break in. Got a few jobs freelance on the HBO show Arliss, on the ABC show Coach. I got some scripts in, but I never was able to join a staff, and I never left Los Angeles either. Also maybe a big mistake.
I don't know about that. I mean, you wouldn't have met me.
Like I said, a very big mistake.
I knew that was coming. Oh, boy. So, Norman, this is not a political podcast, but I am going to ask you a bunch of questions just because you've lived in Los Angeles longer than I have. And you've seen how the city's changed. There's been cycles with different mayors and I guess the state politics has been the same for 16 years. You've had a Democrat. But LA in particular, what are your thoughts now on what's happening in the mayor race? I got to ask you this.
Yeah, in both the mayor race and the governor's race, we just have a lot of bad choices. The governor who's outgoing has not done a good job, and I'm not excited about any of the 8 people who are running.
Mhm.
And the mayor, I did not vote for this mayor. I didn't vote for the governor last time either. I voted for Rick Caruso reluctantly over her. It was I didn't know which one, but she has not done a good job. So again, we have bad choices. I would not like to see her do it again. I'm not that pleased with the city councilman woman who's running, and I'm not a Spencer Pratt guy. So we have bad choices. Now it's weird. The mayor job is sort of blown up. It's not as important as mayor in other cities.
Yeah.
We're just the way the politics run here,
Yeah.
and all the powers with the city council and the board of supervisors. So it's almost like it can have a lot. It can have some influence, but it doesn't decide policy. So it should be more important than it is. But it's part of how Los Angeles politics is just all screwed up. Just how divided the whole area is. It's a wide swath of different municipalities. Most of the parts of Los Angeles that aren't part of the city or county of Los Angeles are full of incredible corruption. The localities of
Yeah.
Inglewood, Bell Gardens, you just keep going down the list. A lot of corruption in the city council.
Yeah.
When I left Maryland and DC, I said, thank goodness I'm getting away from the corruption there. Local politics there was corrupt. I came out here and it was just as bad. Like 1 out of every 3 or 4 city council people at any given time is involved in some type of corruption or graft situation. That's too high of a percentage. So the bad news is nobody has just popped out there and say, all right, this is a logical leader.
Except Rick Caruso, who didn't get elected, despite spending a record number of dollars of his own money, he still didn't get elected.
I would have given. Obviously, I voted for Caruso. I would have given him a chance.
Yeah.
I would give a business person who has experience and has gotten things done a chance over any career politician.
Well, there's one running, Adam Miller.
Yeah, Adam Miller. Yeah, again, he just hasn't lit the fire for me. So Karen Bass, and I've watched her career for a generation. Even if she's well intended, she just isn't. You can be well intended and still not be able to work the system and get stuff done. And she really hasn't ever got anything done.
So let's segue into something that is topical right now. It's somewhat controversial, and that's people just feeling unsafe in the city. And full admission, one of my day job, so to speak, when I'm not interviewing people like you, is to run a gun company called American Gun Owners, which sells guns and ammunition and insurance and instruction in a package to people. And it's all online. It's an e-commerce business now. And people sometimes stop me and say, you're making gun ownership so much easier for everyone. There's already too many guns in the world. And I thought, I understand. I respect what you're saying. There's some truth to that. However, we're building an instruction. So you use a recommendation engine. You answer a bunch of questions. Where do you live? Do you have kids in the house? Have you used a gun before? How strong is your wrist? All these little things, and we find the right gun for you. But we also build an instruction. So when you put your zip code in, there's 128,000 NRA instructors that are built into our platform and theirs, and you can get instruction, hundreds of courses at your disposal. Does that change your opinion at all on gun ownership? And first of all, back to the first question, do you feel safe in Los Angeles?
I generally feel safe in Los Angeles, but I live in a safer neighborhood. So there's
Is there a safe neighborhood?
Oh, sure. There's plenty of safer. First of all, I'm not in a gated community. I'm in Westchester, which is a middle-class community, next to the airport, very large neighborhood, generally pretty safe, and which, they're concerned with, the homeless problem there. There's a lot of homeless problems on the west side of Los Angeles.
Yep.
But as far as feeling safe, and I grew up I lived in Washington, D.C., another place that has a reputation for not being terribly safe. I felt pretty safe. I'd walk home from work at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning in DC, in the city, a mile and a half. I'd walk home from work and feel perfectly safe.
That was a while ago, though.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, that was today. Today's LA.
Yeah. So today's LA, is the safety issue a top 3 issue? Yes, it is. But most of the city, I think most people feel safe most of the time. There are exceptions, and there's parts of the city that none of us ever would go into where we won't feel safe. And that's unfortunate for those neighborhoods because they live in those neighborhoods where they daily live with not feeling safe. But generally, I think that it's hard to characterize. It's when people tell me when the people go visit someplace, what's Paris like? What's this like? We go there, we're there for 3 days, and then we give some broad generalization that has no relation to reality. It's hard to do a broad brush over all of Los Angeles. I have a tough time doing a broad brush over my own neighborhood. It's so complex. So yes, there's a safety issue. We can talk about guns guns don't make me feel any safer.
Yeah.
I've never held a gun in my life. The one time I got mugged back in Washington D.C., all I kept staring at for the 5 or 10 minutes that the mugger was robbing me and my work colleague was I just kept staring at his gun. I'd never seen a gun that close up before.
That's not nice.
I just kept looking at this. It was small, it was silver, it was shiny,
Yeah.
and I just kept looking at the gun. So
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting issue because you may feel safe, but a lot of people are increasingly are not feeling safe because they live in neighborhoods that aren't safe. Westchester, I don't know the crime statistics. It is relatively safe, but people in neighborhoods that have a high crime rate, one of the issues they're having now is the police response time is very slow because there's only 8,300 policemen in Los Angeles, and the last time that number was this low was 1998. So that's preposterous. So people are saying, I need to defend myself now because the police aren't going to get there in time if there's a home invasion. And it's happening a lot. And so people want to be able to empower themselves by arming themselves. And what we're trying to do, obviously, is make it safer because you have a right to have a gun. That's enshrined in the Second Amendment. But at least we're trying to make it safer for people.
yeah, if I had a gun the night, again, I've never had a gun, the night that I was being robbed, that situation could have escalated.
But you have no training. Listen, I wasn't born here. I was born in Canada. I'm a dual citizen. But one of the issues I have in Canada now, they have these draconian guns laws that are basically banning a bunch of guns that people use for hunting and recreation. It's a very rural country. I grew up on a cattle ranch, and there's a lot of gun banning that's going on or trying to do. It costs a ton of money. It's inefficient. And the only people that are being punished are the law-abiding gun owners. Most gun owners, Norm, you have to concede, even here, the statistics are overwhelming, are very law-abiding. They don't commit criminal acts. It's a very small minority of mentally ill people who often get guns by nefarious means. They're not buying them legally. They're getting them illegally. But most 99% of all gun owners are, I'm a gun owner. I'm never going to do anything that breaks the law because I'm not mentally ill and I'm not crazy. But we shouldn't have to punish everyone for a small minority of very dangerous people who are typically involved in the drug trade or, other bad things that big cities produce. And it's a tough dilemma. Anyway, let's move on. We'll agree to disagree. I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, I don't agree, but let's get into something a little less controversial.
Yeah.
Poker.
Oh, that poker. The poker world.
I don't even know how, I don't remember how we met. So I used to play a lot of poker and I played, fairly high stakes. I'd never been on a televised final table. I've come reasonably close. I never had a success as a tournament poker player. But where did we meet?
We met in Las Vegas. You were playing at the World Series of Poker.
Is that right?
Yeah. You might have been playing the main event.
Yeah, I played the main event.
Okay, so I would have met you and you were playing the main event.
Yeah, but I never went that deep, so why would I have met you?
I used to wander around. What I liked to do back then is I would wander around a lot on day 1, day 2, day 3 to find different type of people, different type of stories that we might pursue. If you got further, you probably got knocked out pretty quickly.
Yeah,
but I'm looking for unusual characters or unusual stories. So I was just walking around and I ended up talking to you.
Oh.
And you then invited me to come to lunch one time in Los Angeles after that.
Yeah, when I was making movies back then.
You're a friendly guy. I'm not a friendly guy, but you reached out to me after
That's
that.
true. Yeah, you're not particularly friendly, but I think it was because we had some mutual friends. It was Lib Boiry or Phil Ivey, because I was really good friends with them. So we were all sitting somewhere, and you just came up and talked to them. And I think I was just kind of the residual,
that's possible,
random poker dude. Just like, well, what's your story? And I'm like, well, this is what I do. I made a poker movie. Or a gambling movie, and you said, "Oh, I think you knew that movie." Or something.
I knew the movie very well. It was one of my favorite.
That was my first movie.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So, I have a ton of poker questions because I went through the whole gambit of poker. I didn't play, professionally. I was kind of on the cusp. I did very well in cash games. I started to play some of the big tournaments, and then I kind of felt it was kind of taking over my life. I wouldn't like to say I was addicted to poker, but it probably for a while there you could argue I had an addiction. Do you have any about that affected you?
No, I don't, even though I've always said for years, because I know how it can get into your blood, certain parts of gambling, that I wouldn't like online poker, which of course should be legal. I wouldn't want to play online at home. It's the accessibility to it, because you just turn on your nightstand lamp and you just start playing in your bed. You play in your office, you play in your pajamas. So I've never had that problem, but I do know that I'm a weird guy on gambling. I do a podcast called Gambling Mad, and I don't gamble. I'm pro gambling. Gambling should be legal, and I believe most people probably should not engage in it. And one of the best examples of when there's a gambling problem, if it's harder to hide a drinking problem or a drug problem, for instance. But a gambling problem, particularly if it's like online poker or sports betting, is very easy to hide. It's you can do it again when you're playing. You can play online poker 24/7 in your home and nobody knows it. So I'm just always try to be extra vigilant. I tell people if you're playing online, you should have people you know who are aware of it. You should be aware of people you know who are playing to make sure that they're not overdoing it, because it's very, very easy to fall into that trap and play too much.
And on that point, I've known a lot of professional players over the years. You do know a ton of the professional players now. Without naming names, I'm not interested in that. Tell us more about the unglamorous side behind the cameras at WSOP of some of the people that you see on TV, because I have my own stories about, again, not naming names, where I was just shocked at how insolvent a lot of these guys were, who portray an image of vast wealth, but in fact are asking me for money because they just need 10 grand. I had some tough times. What do you think? But you know a lot more about than I do.
Hidden in broad daylight is that most of the professionals we see, poker professionals or the TV professionals, are always in the red. If you, for instance, there's two different types of poker. There's the cash game poker we grew up with playing, at our kitchen table or buddies in the dorm room, and then there's tournament poker.
Yep.
Tournament poker is what's televised. There's no way you can play tournament poker year round and make money. Not in tournament poker, the way it's structured,
Nobody makes money?
No, it's just the numbers alone. Everyone pays their entry fee, whether it's $100 or $10,000. Okay, so there's no money coming from outside like on the PGA Tour or the tennis tour. You pay your entry fee. Then of that entry fee is what the prize pool is. Only 10 or 15, let's just say 15% of the people who enter the tournament get money from the prize pool. 85 out of every 100 people who enter the tournament lose. Only 15 profit, and most don't profit that much. So if 85 out of 100 people are always walking in and losing, you can't win over the course of a year unless you're finishing very, very high in a couple of tournaments. So almost everybody loses. That's what we never talk about. So even the best tournament pros, if they're only playing tournament poker, they have to have backers who help them.
Okay. Right.
Backing is the most basic thing in poker. Right. Where you want to play, I say, all right, I'll put up 50%. There's a million, and anything can happen. I'll put up 50% of your buy-in, and then I get 50% of your winnings, for instance. Some people get backed 100% and then give away 50% of their winnings or something. So it's very, very difficult to win in tournament poker. And then the other thing that you alluded to, sort of, a lot of these people simply have a gambling problem. They are degenerates. They can't help themselves. There's a thing about Las Vegas that if you move to Las Vegas and you have any particular leak in your life, whether it's women, it's drugs, it's alcohol, gambling, Las Vegas will exploit it and just run you over. So a lot of these good poker players, they're great playing cards, and then they go out and they bet sport. No one wins in sports. They bet sports and they lose. They go into the pit. They go to play craps. They play roulette. Craps is the worst one. So
I got the best story about that. I'm not going to mention names. So unnamed person who you know quite well, top 10 player, finished top 10 in a big tournament, hundreds of thousands of dollars, cash in his pocket, cashed it out with a big bag. We all went over to play craps. He said, I'm going to play craps. Ran it up to 5X. So I think he won like 300 or 400K. Ran it up into the millions. We were like, walk away. Dude, that's amazing. Walk away. No. Lost it all in 10 minutes after that. And I was just like, that made such an impression on me. This was 20 years ago as a younger guy. I was just like, he made this and lost it in 10 minutes. That's like, wow, that just that unnerved me.
It's the other weird thing about that, Michael. It took
never
me a while
forget it.
to understand.
Never forget
it. Psychologically, a lot of them can't quit until they lose. It's actually part of the attraction.
That's right, because that's degenerate. That's a degenerate.
It's incredible. Yeah. They can't feel the whole. Actually, one of the greatest gambling films, is not the best gambling film I'd ever seen, was the original Gambler with James Caan, written by James Toback. And it's hard to find.
I didn't see it. I know of it.
It has the gambling mentality down as good as possible. So a lot of them, they don't get the feel, like the full effect of the drug, so they go through the whole cycle, and then all gets taken away from them. It's just amazing. So that's hard to combat if you have that in your system.
Because the highs and the lows start to, at the end of the circle, like the political spectrum, the right and far left meet at the end. I've had this theory. Winning the $5 million first prize gives you that endorphin, push, and then losing all the money is a similar high in a sick kind of way, right? I mean, I don't
Exactly.
understand it, but this is the only thing I can figure out from being around some of these people, which is really sad.
Yeah, so they can't hold on to it.
They can't hold
The
on to
most
it. Yeah.
one of the best poker tournament players of all time, a legendary guy named Stu Unger,
I remember the
who
name,
won 3 World Series of Poker main event titles. He was just a savant. He had a different type of mind. No one could beat him. But the moment he also had a substance abuse problem on top of that. But the moment he won all that money, they would take him out to the golf course. He'd lose all his money on the golf course. That's another thing. Poker players love gambling on golf, no matter. And in golf, because of handicaps, I can give you 2 strokes per hole. Anybody can go play golf at different levels and gamble on the course. They love gambling. I always tell them, why don't you come gamble on bowling? Who wants to be walking around all day? Let's go bowl, because I love to bowl. But yeah, so Stu Unger, who was the greatest no limit tournament poker player of his time, could not hold on to the money because they just knew to take him out to the golf course and beat him at golf.
So what in your mind is kind of the most memorable moments that you've had as a commentator? Because you've been doing this for quite a while. I don't even know how many years, but you're kind of the voice of WSOP with, I guess, Norm McCarran. Is that right?
Lon McCarran.
That's right, Lon. I associate you with WSOP. There's been some pretty amazing kind of things happen in that tournament over the years. And I think you and I were talking about this a while ago. Last year, there was this English guy who was really obnoxious, and he got all the airtime.
Yeah, Will Kassouf.
Why?
That was the second run that he'd had deep in the World Series in the last 10 years. And both times I am arguing with my producers, let's not give him all the oxygen. That we put the cameras on him, and it's just fire to the flame. And they say, you're crazy. You work in television, don't you? Of course we're going to put the camera on him. What he does, if it wasn't so over the top, if it wasn't stretching the rules, if it wasn't completely irregardless of anyone around him, you might not mind it, but it is so obnoxious and unrelenting. He hijacks the whole game. He abuses other players, which you're allowed to do to some degree. It's against the rules. He takes a long time with any decision he has.
So annoying.
And if you're playing with him, it's just you want to pull your hair out after an hour or two. So we end up showing him a lot because he is good television. And I disagree with that sometimes.
What did the ratings say? Is he good television?
I don't know. There were virtually no ratings the last 5 years because we were behind a paywall for most of it. We've been off. We're back on ESPN this year. We were off of ESPN the last 4 or 5 years of the contract. We were on CBS Sportsnet and on Poker Go, so there wasn't much of an audience. But yeah, I mean, more people are going to want to watch that. There's no question about it. But it's just like a newspaper. A newspaper could put a naked woman on their front page every day, and they'd get more people looking at their front page than reporting on NATO. But it's a question of what are you there for? We're not there to show, TNA. We're not there to show a guy abuse the whole system, and he's obviously playing to the cameras. We should be there for another reason. So I think there's a middle ground you can reach with a guy like Will Kassouf.
But didn't they change the rules a few years ago because there was all this grandstanding where people yell up and scream like this dozer guy, this giant dude was like, "Boo, dozer" or something.
Yeah.
That's when I was playing. That was a while ago.
That they made a rule. They made a rule just because of him.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it was limiting essentially the NFL has the same type of rules for their celebrations. It was limiting what you could do after the hand.
Right.
So
Celebration rule.
And now there are rules again for things that Will Kassouf do on how much if you can be abusive at the table to other people, which you cannot. You can be if you can't use profanity. If you're constantly abusing the amount of time you take, you can get a penalty. So there's a lot of rules that they are reluctant to put into place at any given time. But it makes the game worse for a guy like that to come in and do what he does.
So I don't know if you ever answered the question, how did you get into commentating poker?
That was a complete accident. That was like a piano falling out of the sky. And instead of crushing me, it landed right next to me. And it turns out I can play the piano. I started playing. That's pretty much how it happened. Not involving a piano, but
I get the metaphor.
So Michael, I was a sports columnist for a long time for the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I did some work for ESPN, like the talking, all the talking heads. I did some of that work for them. I also did some consulting for them. In 2003, 23 years in 2003, ESPN was going to do the World Series of Poker in a larger degree than they ever had before. They had the contract. They had only done it 1 hour a year. So they were bringing in an outside production company to do poker that had never done poker before, but it was a great production company called 441 Productions. It was a documentary production company. The guy who hired me for ESPN thought I knew more about poker than I did. He said, why don't you consult with them, help them out along with poker, because they don't know anything about poker. So that's what I did. For several months on the phone, through emails, I helped them with, here are the big names, and this is stuff you need to know. And then after 6 or 8 months of doing that, they called me up and said, would you like to be the poker commentator on our telecasts? I said, what are you, nuts? I told him, every little kid's dream since the time they're 5 years old is to be a poker commentator. Poker on TV didn't exist. And I said, really? I said, yeah, we're not going to ask Phil Hellmuth or Phil Ivey to do it. We're not going to ask a jock to do it. You happen to make us laugh during the conference calls and the emails, so we want you to do it. And I actually didn't say yes at first. And then at that time, I asked my best friend later in the week. He says, why are you going to say no? I go, it's poker on TV. Who's going to watch that? They went, yeah, but you don't have a really good job right now. Why don't you just take it? I said, oh, yeah, that's a good point. So I took it, and I still thought it was a 1 year deal, Michael. They were doing seven 1 hour broadcasts off of the World Series of Poker main event. And that was the year Chris Moneymaker won.
Oh, okay.
So everything came together, but we didn't think I didn't think it was going to explode. I thought it might be fun to do. Poker, what is poker, Michael? At that time in particular, it's a bunch of older guys sitting around a table, throwing chips into the middle, looking at their cards. That doesn't sound like television entertainment to me. So this production company was really, really good at how they did it. 441 Productions. They made it look really cool. Oh. And they were responsible for poker as it looks today, especially how the World Series looks. And it just caught on, which surprised me. I never thought people would watch it.
But you didn't play back then?
No, I never play. I don't play.
So
No
you
Limit
must
Hold'em.
have taught yourself how to play, because your commentary, you know how the game works.
I really don't. Okay, seriously.
That's so
I do
funny
not
to me.
play.
I always wanted to ask you that, because sometimes Lon kind of ribs you, like, he implies that you're a terrible player.
Okay, I am a above average poker player in every game other than the one we broadcast. I don't play No Limit Hold'em. I never played it.
You play Limit, right?
I play Omaha. I play Stud. I play all the other variations of poker, but mostly Omaha and Stud, and split pot.
You
games.
Understand how the game
but I don't play. No Limit's a different animal.
Okay,
so I don't try to analyze it that much, and I never play it. And I hear when they force me to analyze it. When I go back and watch some of the things I said early on, I should have been fired on the spot as far as the strategy things I was saying. I shouldn't have talked about any strategy because I don't know it.
But that shtick worked. And it still works, because you'll say something that's kind of silly, and then Lon will like, yeah, I guess that's why you don't win. Or you probably go all in now. And you go, yep, that'd be me. And that kind of self-deprecation, I think, plays well.
I hope it does. It's natural. And so I do think that appeals more to the casual viewer. So I don't think the high level strategy I would never want to get into anyway. No, and that's
a tiny minority of people anyway.
Yeah. So that's unfortunately where the poker broadcasts have gone the last few years, and
worrying.
And it's kind of made me obsolete. The way I do it, which you like, is the way I think it should be done, and brings in a more casual viewer who can appreciate what's going on from a very common man standpoint.
Do you think the game has evolved as more of a pure game theory mathematical exercise now? This is my casual observation, but I'm not as close to it as you are. Where before you would get this kind of gambler mentality guy who made decisions with his gut, who's very good at reading people. Maybe he analyzed tells. And now what I've seen recently is a bunch of younger guys who are very quantitative, and they have applied game theory and gone over literally thousands of hands and run simulations on their computers and built algorithms to study the game. And the only reason I know about this is because I'm very good friends with Liv Boiry, who's a female poker player and is a physicist and very, very smart outside of poker and in poker. And she tried to explain it to me, and her boyfriend, Igor Kurgakov, I'm butchering his name,
I know you are,
is like probably got an IQ of 160. Yes. And he was explaining to me that it's just pure game theory now.
Correct.
So what do you think about that? I don't really get it.
So if it's pure game theory, it's like if in chess you were playing against, and they've done this, they've actually done this. You're playing against a computer. It's hard for the human to beat the computer who's making the absolute perfect game theory move every time. Poker would be the same thing. So the best players, even before we got to this higher level of GTO, of game theory, optimal right now, it's called GTO, the online generation that came the last 20 years had figured out the game better than the old school guys you're talking about, who more went on reads and instincts and knew some of the math. But these guys worked harder,
Yeah.
the online guys, on figuring out all the math. And now they've stepped it up to this game theory optimal, which it comes down to who memorizes it best, actually.
Right.
And so it's taken a lot of the soul out of the game, and nobody wants a bunch of essentially human robots sitting around pushing buttons on exactly what the right thing to do, and that's dangerous for the game. And actually, it's real-time assistance, which is called RTA, is banned. What we have sometimes, especially on online where people can't see you, people are acting, and they have a second laptop there, and they're putting in the situation,
Sure,
real-time assistance, so they can. That's not allowed. That's cheating. So that's now done routinely, and it even came up at the World Series a couple of final tables ago when the guy who ended up winning, Jonathan Tamayo, had his coaches on the rail. You can have coaches, but these coaches, we thought they had a laptop up. We thought they were watching the broadcast, which is on delay. Most of the best players, when we show it live, it's actually about 30 or 40 minutes delay for security reasons. The best players have people watching it so they can tell you later, oh, on that hand an hour ago, Michael Pierce was bluffing you. He had king jack offsuit. So they update him on what the play is from previous in the day.
makes sense.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
What they were doing that day is they were using RTA. They had a laptop right there, and they were plugging in what was going on live to let him know what was going on at the time.
But they can't communicate with him in real time. He's sitting over there. He can't have an earpiece or anything.
No,
so
he
you're
can't.
saying during breaks, he would run over there and they would look at hands that had just happened and they would go through the scenario again with the
Yes.
RTO or
Yes. Or you could just like, by the way, coaching in tennis, it's banned is kind of stupid.
well, now you can.
And now you can.
Okay.
But for even when it was banned, you could have hand signal. The coach is up there, it's saying something to do with this or whatever. Like a third base coach in baseball going. Okay. You can do that too in a live setting if you wanted to. You could delay your, there's no clock on you. You could delay your spot right there, and they could help you if they knew what your cards were. They probably don't know what your cards are, but that type of assistance, even just a few minutes later, is invaluable. And so it kind of changes the game if just people are just plugging in the computer numbers and telling you this is what it was and this is what it'll be. And we're trying to police that again. Nobody wants to play, especially a rec player, a casual player doesn't want to play in a situation where everybody against him is essentially a computer. You have no chance to win if you're an amateur. That's part of the appeal to the game, is on any given day, as we can say, anyone can enter, anyone can win. You or I can never beat Roger Federer in tennis. We can never beat Tiger Woods in golf, but we can sit down and beat Danny Negreanu or Tiger Woods on any given day in a poker tournament with the cards coming our way and some luck. Okay.
So have any of these guys actually won these big tournaments though? I mean, I don't follow enough now. Like, that kind of quant player who doesn't really play any other way. I mean, there's so much variance in poker, especially with the main event where you have 10,000 entrants. It always seems like there's some guy who wins who doesn't have a history of poker.
Oh, again, because tournament poker has a lot more luck than cash poker.
Right.
Because at any given time you can lose all your chips and you can't reach into your pocket and buy more money.
Well, no limit.
But you're talking about, there's a guy, there's a legendary guy, the late Darvin Moon. So Darvin Moon, he just walked out of the woods of West Virginia. He was a logger. He had never been to Las Vegas. It was his first main event. It was his first World Series tournament. He finished second. He finished second. Whatever. There's 5, 6, 7,000 entrants. He finished second in the whole thing. And he had almost just literally walked out of woods. He lived in the forest in West Virginia, near Maryland, and he just came in, and to get through all those people with a skill level that would be lower than a lot of people, and with no GTO background and stuff, it can happen in tournament poker, which is the attraction of it.
It seems to happen even with professionals. Look at last year with Miss Rahi, who won. I didn't watch all of it. People who watched every hand tell me that he was all in numerous times with the worst hand.
Yes.
and he drew out at the end. So he should have been out of that tournament 10 times. Sometimes it's almost like it's just your day.
And that was you're describing an extreme example. It did happen last year to Mizrachi. He was all in and behind again and again and again. He won his last 8 or 9 all-ins pre-flop in a row, most of the time being behind. And again, if you're a 3-1 dog, you're supposed to win it 1 out of 3 times. Well, he was winning it every time.
Right.
So and again, it can happen in poker. That's
why people play, though. That's why they keep entering, because you know what? It could be my turn. It could be. Look at Jamie Gold. I mean, I played with Jamie for years before he won the main event, and that was just his style. It's always been his style. And in real life, hasn't worked out so well for him. But in that day or that week, he couldn't lose. We watched him in astonishment, all of us who had played with him. And he was behind often. Didn't matter.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
It was a while ago.
And that was, we were talking about Mizrachi just now about on the last day or so, how he just had bang, bang, bang. Yeah. Jamie had like a 5-day run.
Right.
Where he was the chip leader. It's hard to be chip leader for 5 days when there's 6,000 players. He was it doesn't, I mean, you only can say it happens because it does.
Right.
It doesn't seem possible, but for 5 days, he could do virtually nothing wrong, behind or ahead.
I mean, that's just kind of consistent with a lot of things you've said about poker. Like if people didn't know you and had never listened to this podcast, they would actually think that you played a lot more poker. The fact that you tell me you don't really play, I find so funny. And you didn't play when you got hired. So you've been talking about this game and the no limit game, which again, you do, and you don't really play the game, but it almost seems like you do.
Yeah, it's weird. You could call it professional malfeasance on my part, Michael. For the 23 years I've broadcasted, you would think that I would sit down and start playing the game to understand it better.
Yeah.
But I decided from a entertainment standpoint and a TV standpoint that I don't want to start dipping my toes into the strategy waters. It would take away from what I believe is the better way to approach showing it, which is, again, a much more casual approach and talking about the people and their backstories and having fun and making jokes. I didn't want to start getting into, like, if we were broadcasting the game that I play best, like Omaha 8 or Stud 8, I would hope to do virtually no strategy, because it's the same thing. I don't want to turn away people who are just there to watch the personalities and the chips go back and forth. They don't want to hear strategy. So I would keep it very casual. So I have intentionally not gone into the strategy business.
Let's give him a moment to think about this. So is there a most memorable moment that you've had as a poker commentator throughout your tenure, which has been over 12 years, right?
No, it's been more than 20 years now.
20 years? Oh my God, that's ridiculous. I got so old. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Okay. Any most memorable moment? A lot of stuff's happened.
Yeah. Okay. Again, nothing compares to, and I didn't even understand how significant Chris Moneymaker winning was going to be when he did it, the first year that we did it, and when poker took off. But again, this is the original story of an accountant, a CPA from a 27-year-old CPA from Tennessee, who had never played at the World Series before, who won what we call an online satellite, where you put in $50 and it somehow wins you a $10,000 seat. So he'd won a $50 or $75 online satellite, did not want to try to sell the seat, did not want to come to Las Vegas, try to give it to somebody else, ended up coming to Las Vegas, and he ends up, beating, at that time, what was a huge field of 800 some players, and then probably wins $2.5 million from his $50 investment. So that's incredibly memorable. That set off the poker boom. But for me, then several years later, because it was personal, there's a guy named Greg Merson, who is from Maryland, where I grew up. And he had amazing substance abuse problems. He had been in detox. Just 2 years later, he was in a hotel room and his world was crashing down. And he recovered from that. Now he's been sober, by the way. He's been sober now for the last 15, 17 years. So him winning the World Series that year and the way he reacted to it, I mean, the tears of joy, that he knew exactly the road he had taken, how hard it was, how unlikely it was that he'd be standing atop the poker world, winning millions of dollars, when just a year or year and a half earlier, he had a problem with drugs and alcohol. That, watching him win that and watching his tears and watching it with his parents, that just stayed with me ever since it happened. Every time I see it now, if I just pull it up, I can't watch it without getting all, misty.
misty-eyed.
Yes.
So it's kind of the human stories that resonate with you. And I've always felt that about you when I got to know you, and still I feel that way, that you're interested in, human stories, like this mass bunch of humanity stuffed into this giant rooms in Vegas where 10,000 people come together from all walks of life, all over the world. I'm fascinated by that. I go and play that just so I can see the people and just interact at the table with people from all over the world. The poker is almost secondary to me. I'm just fascinated by it.
You bring up something that has been my greatest friend in Los Angeles, which is the card room. There's no other place you can go in Los Angeles and the World Series of Poker that is a bigger example of this, where you have this mixing of all types of people in one spot. You won't find it at a country club. You won't find it at the library. You won't find it in a restaurant. People who walk into a card room or walk into the World Series of Poker, they're rich, they're poor, they're white collar, they're blue collar. They do everything, and they're all under one room. And that's the amount of people I've met in Los Angeles. 90% of the people I've become friends with or that I know best are from the card room, and their stories are all incredible. Most of them are not poker players. So that's the part of poker that I've always enjoyed most, which is who you meet and how you see different people and learn different things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that don't play would have maybe not understand that. It's not so much for you and for me too, to go there and just to win money and to beat people. And I'm not a savant of the game. I don't care about game theory. I don't play much anymore because I got 2 kids and I'm married and I've got a lot of responsibilities. I just can't, I don't have the time. But I always did enjoy that. And so if I go back and play again, which I will with my buddies once in a while, I'll go to the WSOP. It's more of a social experience than anything else. Now, sometimes it can be an expensive one because you're probably going to lose if you're buying.
By the way, in Los Angeles, because it's an entertainment town, the amount of entertainment people I've met here where I go, are you kidding me? Like, oh, I'm sorry, you're Roger King. Who's Roger King? Oh, King World? Yeah. Oh, you syndicate Wheel of Fortune and Oprah. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Oh, your name's Mike Post? Mike Post? Oh, you've done the music for every Law and Order, every Hill Street Blues in history? Oh, that's incredible. Oh, your name's Mike Stoller? Who's Mike Stoller? Oh, you were part of the Lieber Stoller songwriting team that wrote hits for Elvis in the 1960s, that wrote Stand By Me. The people in the entertainment is, besides the actors and stuff that I mean, and, someone like yourself, you produced The Cooler. That's one of my 5 favorite gambling movies of all time. So in Los Angeles, you get the added benefit of all these people in the entertainment industry who have done all these things that you've seen or heard. You go, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the through line is between entertainment industry people and poker, because there's something there. I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm drawn to it. I like the rush, I have to admit. It's not that dissimilar when you're making a movie or you're directing a movie or you're in a movie. There's a lot of theatrics to poker. At least there used to be, the poker that we're talking about. Not so much now where it's all game theory, where no one moves a muscle. I've seen these. They're typically younger people. I'm not generalizing, and they just simply, like, they're so robotic. I can see their mind working a million miles a minute, and they're going back into their brain, to their massive database of 5,000 card combinations. And so based on what they see and what the flop was, they're going and they're retrieving what the odds are based on their view of what they think everyone's hand is by how they've been playing for the last hour or two, because they remember what everyone bets and what hand they are when they get to see a hand. That information they never forget. And these kids are impressive.
It's incredible because they're processing everything you just said, and that comes out to you're most likely to have right here, King 10 suited.
Right.
And oh my God, they're right.
Right.
I mean, it's not just done by instinct. It's done by what you're talking about.
It's math.
All that stuff.
That
memorizing stuff.
Card combinations, which I never even thought about. But now I started to think about poker again. I'm in a boring moment. And sometimes I go back to the new books, and I study the math. I'm like, it actually makes sense. It's not so much now about playing positions. Like, it doesn't even matter where you are. It depends on what the guy's range is. What are the hands that he could possibly had, and how that plays against what you're actually holding, which is a very different way to play. I studied poker when it was Doyle Brunson, a Super System. Remember that?
Yeah, Super System was the Bible of poker.
And Phil Hellmuth, I read a bunch of his books, and the older guys, and it was a very different strategy anyway. Poker, schmoker. On a completely different topic, related topic, is people always ask me how I got into what I'm doing. If you were a young person and they asked you, listen, I'd love to get into poker announcing, what would you tell them? I mean, you've admitted that you didn't have a plan, and it just kind of fell on you, beside you, is your metaphor, the piano that fell and you played it. What would you tell a young person who looks to you like, this guy's the #1 poker announcer in the world? How do I get into this? How do I do this?
Well, I would advise. First of all, I always advise people against getting into poker in general. If the gambling part of it,
Yeah.
it's a hard way to make.
Not poker, announcing.
But the announcing
commentary.
thing, that's a weird
It's a
one
real
too, Michael,
job. It's a real job,
because I mean, as recently as 10 years ago, there would have been virtually no poker announcers. There wasn't that much poker. It was like a very small collection of people. So it was really hard to get into. Now there's a lot more. There's live streaming out there.
Yeah,
cash games.
a lot of options.
There's a million things to do. But I claim it's like anything else you do. I used to tell us when I was a sports writer and I have to go to journalism schools and lecture, and I used to tell them that you just don't want to concentrate on, let's say you're covering baseball. You need to know stuff. It's important to know what's going on around you outside of baseball. It's almost like a chef who has like 25 different spices up there. They're going to use 2 or 3 of them in a given meal, but they need to know how to use all 25 at any given time. You want to have more spices in your rack when you're a sports writer covering a baseball game than just knowing that Shohei Ohtani's a better pitcher than the next guy. There's other things you want to know that's going on in current affairs that might come into play. There's other things you want to know about other sports that might come into play. So I would tell the poker announcers the same thing. The more it's preparation in any field you go into, the more you know, the better off you are. So the more you know what seems to be outside the narrow track of just poker, you might want to learn more about gambling. You might want to learn more about Las Vegas history in general. You might want to learn more about what the culture is like right now with gambling law here and that. The more that can come into play when you're announcing, because it's just not, oh, look at that flop, he's got a better hand than him. Other stuff can come into play. But if you just want to come in and do, that's the flop, that looks pretty good, that's really easy to do. Anybody can do that. You don't need any formal training.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about, I think, just involves a little more preparation and a little more thought process.
All right. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, which I just love asking people who are interesting and have done cool things with their lives at the end of the podcast. What would you do if you were not afraid to do it? Is there anything that you've not done because let's say you had no fear at all in your life? Maybe you have no fear. I don't know. I mean, I have plenty of fear, but is there anything you would do if you had zero fear?
Well, what I would do, I used to have zero fear when I was a stand-up comedian, by the way, coming out of college. And I was a bad stand-up comedian. That's a good one. If I had zero fear again, I would go out and do it again tomorrow. And because I failed so badly at it 40 odd years ago, I'd want to give it another shot.
But you tried. I haven't had the balls to go do my routine. So I've got a routine and I haven't been able to bring myself to do it. Because a lot of it's at my wife's expense. So I fear it might not end well for me.
Oh yeah, you've thought of material you would do in
yes.
right?
Yes.
So why would you just go to some anonymous open mic night on a Tuesday night and do
it? Fear. So Norman, can you tell me one of your jokes that you used during your stand-up career, which I know was very brief?
Okay. First of all, I was a professional comedian.
Okay.
Except the problem is that
nobody saw you.
I had no jokes. Forget that nobody saw me. I had no jokes.
Got it.
I mean, one of my standard jokes was Aristotle and Plato and Socrates are having lunch. Socrates walks out. Aristotle says to Plato, "What an idiot he is." That was a joke. You understand? That was to the human condition of how we, this is the 3 smartest guys in the world. And as soon as one guy, how we always talk about each other when somebody walks out. So this is, the 3 of them are together. As soon as one of them walks out of the room, one says to the other, "God, what an idiot he is." Okay, that's how. Okay, there's some truth to that.
There's some,
but it wasn't a good joke. I was such a bad comedian. I would close with an impersonation of a Siberian Husky. Now, how good could this be?
How the hell do you do that?
Okay, so first of all, I would do the Siberian Husky walk, which I can't do right here because I'm sitting down, but it was almost like a crip walk, like in the hood. And then the first thing the Husky would do is they'd be smoking some weed. The Husky would go, "Yeah, I banged that Shetland sheepdog last week." Okay, that's the first words out of my mouth. That was my closer. You're supposed to start strong and finish strong. Okay, I wasn't starting strong and I wasn't finishing strong if I'm doing a Siberian Husky impersonation, which has the words, "Yeah, I banged that Shetland sheepdog."
Well, I can say the following things to that. I give you credit for standing up and actually doing it because I haven't had the balls to do my routine yet. So that's number 1. But number 2, thank God you found success as a poker commentator, because I would be fearful of where you'd be living now. You'd be in a shelter or something, because those jokes are terrible, dude. But anyway, okay. I think that's good.